What's going on, guys? Zuko back with another War Within video. Hope you're all doing very well. We are going to look at the crazy changes that are happening to Enhancement Shaman in Season 2. And I'm going to kind of go ahead and call this a mini rework or a full-blown rework. It's probably more of a mini rework, I guess, but there are some huge changes coming for Enhancement Shaman. So buckle up. I'm going to go through all of them in the patch notes. Basically, what's happening from a TLDR point of view here, there's a massive damage shift away from Maelstrom weapon stack spenders and getting pushed into your melee abilities like Storm Strike, Lava Lash, Ice Strike, okay? Deeply rooted Ascendance procs are completely changing how they proc. I'll talk about that in a minute. Primordial Wave, the whole Primordial Wave line is new now and different. There's a new ability called Primordial Storm. Talk about that. They're kind of shifting a little bit more towards enabling a physical damage pattern or physical style. There might potentially be a two-handed enhance build. We'll talk about that in a minute. I don't think it actually is. We'll talk about it. And yeah, those are the main changes that are coming. So what's this new focus that I'm talking about? Number one, again, these patch notes are huge. I'm just going to skim through these and help you pick out the big points here. So Blizzard is moving away from Maelstrom weapon stack spenders and moving into your regular melee abilities being a big part of your damage. So they talk about here. Enhancement Shaman currently have Maelstrom weapon spending abilities that are potentially do very, very high damage, while their melee abilities are not hitting as hard as we would like them to. So they're redistributing some of that damage, okay? We'll talk about this new talent in a second, excuse me. Here's what they're talking about. Storm Strike damage up by 100%. Ice Strike, Lava Lash damage up by 100%. LE Blast up by 20%. Kind of nice. Crash Lightning initial damage up by 200%. Okay? So your actual melee abilities are going to hit really, really hard. Okay? Right now, my Storm Strike does 156,000 damage. My Lightning Bolt does 109,000 damage, but of course, it scales with Maelstrom weapon stack. So your Maelstrom weapon stack spenders are still going to be your highest DPS abilities because they scale with the Maelstrom weapon stack spenders, and your melee abilities do not. But all of your melee abilities now do double damage on their initial hits, including Crash Lightning. So there's a world where you might want to take like Ice Strike and have Lava Lash and Ice Strike and Storm Strike and use all three of them. I don't know, but the point is they're going to do a lot more damage, which is going to feel a lot better when you're generating Maelstrom weapon stacks, okay? Feral Spirits now are also going to contribute always to physical damage. Let me bring this up here. So this is the new tree here. Your Feral Spirits naturally are buffing your physical damage by 15%. If you take Elemental Spirits, now they will continue to buff physical abilities by 10% and then only buff your Fire, Frost, and Lightning damage by 10%. So, but you're still getting a physical damage amp, which is going to be really good, actually. Let's say you want to take Elemental Spirits as a Totemic Enhancement Shaman. You're still going to get extra bonus damage to your Surging Totem, and now your Storm Strike is doing double damage. Your Wind Fury damage will still get a benefit from having Elemental Spirits talented. So, it's a bit more like generally good no matter what build you're doing. Okay, it's slightly worse if you're doing a pure elemental build. Let's put it that way. Okay. Okay, those are the big buffs there. There's a new talent line called Primordial Storm and it's the Primordial Wave line. So let's talk about this. Primordial Wave, now it just blasts all targets affected by Flame Shock. Okay, there's no more Lightning Bolt component, and it automatically generates 5 Maelstrom weapon stacks. So another key component here is that Molten Assault will now spread Flame Shock to 5 additional enemies instead of 4. So you go Flame Shock, Lava Lash, and you get 6 Flame Shocks now instead of 5, which is really, 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 really good, okay? Now, back to Primordial Wave. So this now, instead of adding a Flame Shock to an enemy and then detonating it with Lightning Bolt, you just fire Primordial Wave and it just detonates automatically, and there's no more Lightning Bolt needed, okay? It does slightly less damage than what your Lightning Bolt probably will be doing right now, but it's one less keybind to have to press in your opener, right? So you just Flame Shock, Lava Lash, Primordial Wave. Boom, you've done the blast already, okay? Or if you're doing Totemic, you could just go Surging Totem, Flame Shock. It automatically spreads the Flame Shock because that's what Surging Totem allows you to do, right? And then blast with Primordial Wave, boom. And then you generate 5 Maelstrom weapon stacks right away. They've gotten rid of the ability to generate 10. That's gone, okay? There's no ability to do that anymore. Bring up this other one here. We might as well get these side by side. It's gonna be more helpful for you guys, okay? Let me scroll down here so you can see everything. Okay, so in the old tree, you had to put 2 points into this to get 6 stacks of Maelstrom weapons. Sorry, not 10, but 6, I think. Is it 10 or 6? It doesn't really matter. Point is, that's gone. They've moved Splintered Elements up a little bit. It does the same thing that it did before, but it requires 2 talent points instead of 1. But now you get a new capstone ability called Primordial Storm, which is really cool. Primordial Wave transforms into a single-use Primordial Storm for 15 seconds. So here's what happens. You drop your Surging Totem. You press Flame Shock. You have 6 Flame Shocks, okay? You press Primordial Wave. It detonates onto all those Flame Shocks and does a bunch of damage, right? You send out a bunch of Primordial Waves. Then, for 15 seconds afterwards, you activate, you can press Primordial Storm. And it will do a big AoE burst of damage. It does Flame Strike damage, Frost Strike damage, Storm Strike damage. It does all 3 of them, and it unleashes a lightning bolt or a chain lightning. I don't know how it's going to decide whether to do that. We'll have to figure that out. If you're in an AoE situation, I hope it presses chain lightning, right? It also is a Maelstrom weapon stack spender, so you can generate up to 10 Maelstrom weapon stacks and then drop Primordial Storm. But remember, the new Primordial Wave gives you 5 Maelstrom weapon stacks for free, so you only have to generate 5 additional ones, and then you detonate your Primordial Storm. So very, very cool. You could see where it's like Surging Totem, Flame Shock, Primordial Wave, Primordial Storm. That's the combo now if you're running Totemic, right? That would be a massive amount of damage that you're able to do. And again, it's going to do Flame Strike, Frost Strike, Storm Strike damage, which guess what? If your elemental spirits are out, no matter what dog you have out, you're benefiting, you're going to be buffing the damage of this. I don't know if it's going to like triple dip on elemental spirits, like I don't know, but the point is it's going to get a lot of extra damage from there, and it's also going to benefit significantly from your mastery, which buffs your fire, frost, and nature damage, which it's going to do all 3 of those. So very, very, very cool. Love this new ability, love the combo it's going to present for you, and they basically cleaned up this whole line, not having to invest points into getting Maelstrom weapon stacks anymore. They just give them to you for free with Primordial Wave. Primordial Wave, generally speaking, is an incredible talent now. Even if you weren't going all the way down to Primordial Storm, you could just take Primordial Wave as a talent and then have Lava Lash plus Molten Assault, and boom, you know, you've got a really strong AoE, you know, detonation ability. So, yeah, really good combos there, okay? Now, let's keep going. That's the new talent, Primordial Wave, Primordial Storm. Elemental Spirits got changed a little bit. I told you about the new combo. Let's talk about talent changes here. So there's a whole bunch of talent changes that have come through. So, I'll make this window a little bit bigger so that it looks, there we go, or taller. There we go. So here's what's going to happen, okay? I'm gonna just rapid fire through all of these. Ice Strike has changed position with the Tempest / Elemental Blast, so they've swapped positions. And then Hailstorm Fire Nova has gone over with Ice Strike, of course, and Flurry has swapped positions over to here. Hot Hand has moved way up, which is very interesting. So this is actually a pretty significant change in my opinion, where you can now get Hot Hand without having to get Hailstorm / Fire Nova, right? You were forced to get Hailstorm Fire Nova before you got Hot Hand. You don't have to do that anymore. So if you want to run a pure, like, physical Totemic build with a little bit of Lava Lash on the side, you don't have to invest all the way into Fire Nova, Hailstorm to get Hot Hand. You can just get Hot Hand to kind of go with your physical build that you're doing. And then they've added a lot more connections to different talents. So there's a lot more flexibility in this mid-gate area, I would say, okay? Like, for example, Raging Maelstrom goes down to Hailstorm, And in this one, Raging Maelstrom does not go down to Flurry. Remember, Flurry and Hailstorm have like swap positions. So they've added a new line right here, which is really, really cool. And they've also added another line. You can go from Sundering to Storm Flurry all the way down to Lashing Flames with the new talent tree. So Sundering, Storm Flurry, down to Lashing Flames if you want to. If you wanted to do a build that included Lashing Flames, because Sundering can also now trigger the Lashing Flames effect. So if you don't want to pick up Hot Hand and Ashen Catalyst, but you want Sundering into the Lashing Flames just to get extra passive damage on your Flame Shock, you have the option to do that now. So that would be, I guess, if you're running like a standard Storm build, but you also include a little bit of Flame Shock damage, you could double the Flame Shock damage. Or if you're doing a physical Totemic build where you're not worried at all about pressing Lava Lash, except to spread Flame Shock. But you don't even need that. You just press Flame Shock, and it spreads automatically if you're doing a Totemic build, right? Because of the talent down, because of the Whirling Elements talent. So you could just go like Molten Assault and then, you know, go Tempest Flurry, let's say, down into Sundering, get Storm Flurry, and get Lashing Flames to get double damage on your Flame Shocks without having to ever press Lava Lash at all. You can just press Sundering now to do that, because that's what this talent does. So very interesting kind of change there. Obviously, Swirling Elements is over with Fire Nova and Ice Strike now. Ice Strike just generates one stack of Maelstrom weapon on its own now without needing Swirling Maelstrom, which is, again, more incentive to press Ice Strike because it also does double damage compared to what it does right now. Nothing with Doom Winds. Molten Thunder has changed. So it used to be that your other abilities all had a random chance, like a small chance, to reset the cooldown on Sundering. Now, Sundering itself has a chance to reset the cooldown on Sundering, and it's a very, very high chance, and then it slowly kind of goes down over time. So what they wanted to do was make the Sundering procs, the resets, feel more consistent, because right now they're completely random. So this is going to make it more consistent, but it will gradually taper off over time. So you're basically guaranteed to have one Sundering reset early on, I would say. Like on your first Sundering slam, it's probably going to reset itself. And then on the next one, it's unlikely to do that. And you're going to have to wait for the next Sundering to do it again, basically, is how that's going to work out. Crash Lightning, instant damage, or upfront damage has obviously been doubled, as I said before. Voltaic Blaze now says that it has a high chance to make your next Flame Shock become Voltaic Blaze. It used to be an 18% chance. That's what it is right now, 18%. It's moving to a high chance, which, if I know anything about high chance procs in World of Warcraft, that means it's going to proc quite a lot. So they're basically saying they're not happy with how inconsistent Voltaic Blaze is procking. They're going to make it more consistent and probably more often, okay, that it's going to be procking for you, which I'm not sure how I feel about that, because I like the proc of Voltaic Blaze, but I also feel like it's sort of crowding my GCDs. And Enhancement Shaman, if you know anything about it, you know, it has very crowded GCDs. Like every single time you could press a button, you could probably press 4 buttons. And 3 of the 4 of them might actually be good. So I think crowding the GCD space once again with more Voltaic Blaze procs, to me, is a little bit worrying. Maybe there's a build that you can work out where this is not a problem, but I'm not really sure. It says approximately 7 procs per minute, which means it's like once every 8 seconds or so. I'm not sure what the math is on that, but, you know, divide that up. It's once every like maybe 5 or 6 or 7 seconds or something. That's a lot. That's a lot of GCDs that you're using. Okay. There's that Primordial Wave stuff. Now, Deeply Rooted. Let's get to Legacy first. Legacy of the Frost Witch. Now, 1 point into Legacy of the Frost Witch gives you 15% more physical damage dealt rather than 5%. Right now it's 5%. The second talent point is still 25%. So if you want to put 1 point into Legacy of the Frost Witch, it's definitely more worth it now than it used to be, which is really cool. Flowing Spirits now shows us that we have a 10% chance to summon a Feral Spirit rather than it just saying you have a chance. So it tells you what the chance is now, which is nice. And then Deeply Rooted. So this is interesting. Deeply Rooted right now says casting Tempest, Lightning Bolt, or Chain Lightning have a 3% chance to activate Ascendance. The new Deeply Rooted says each stack of Maelstrom weapon consumed has a 0.6% chance. So it doesn't matter which ability you're using. You can use any ability, and it just has a percentage chance based on your Maelstrom weapon stacks used. So if you use 10 Maelstrom weapon stacks, you will have a 6% chance to activate Ascendance, rather than always having a 3% chance. So this is a huge buff to Deeply Rooted, in my opinion. Generally speaking, you're either going to be spending 5 Maelstrom weapon stacks or 10. More often than not, you're going to be spending 10, I would say, as long as you're building them quick enough. So that means that your chance to activate Ascendance is either 3% or 6%, and it's likely always going to be 6% if you're playing correctly. So in my opinion, this is a massive boost to the way that this works, and it's going to incentivize you to spend 10 Maelstrom weapon stacks rather than 5, which a lot of people are spending 5 over and over and over again, which, you know, you can still do that and it will do the exact same thing as it's doing right now. But I think it's probably more worth it to spend 10. Let me know what you guys think about that in the comments down below. But that is the big change to Ascendance to Deeply Rooted. As far as Ascendance goes itself, remember, you transform into an Air Ascendant and you start pressing Wind Strike. Wind Strike literally is just Storm Strike with Armor Pen. So it's just it does replace Storm Strike. So my interest here is that the damage of Storm Strike just got doubled. So does that mean the damage of Wind Strike also got doubled? I would assume the answer is yes, because it just transforms Storm Strike into Wind Strike. It doesn't, like, it could technically be a different ability, but I think it scales off of Storm Strike's damage, okay? Which means if Storm Strike's damage is double, then the damage of this is double, which means your contribution of Wind Strike damage from Ascendance might actually be pretty high. It's going to be a lot better than it is right now. Right now, if I get to the end of like a Mythic Plus dungeon, my actual Wind Strike damage might be like 1 to 2%. This might go to like 2 to 4% of our overall damage, which could actually be a lot if you think about it that way. So those are the big changes there for Deeply Rooted, okay? Those are all the ability changes that are coming through. Some pretty big ones, right? I mean, more Flame Shock spreading for free, which is great. An entire Primordial wave line that's different now. Better proc for Deeply Rooted. More connection nodes in the midpoint of the tree, which makes it a lot easier to get around. Sundering resets itself now, which is really great. Voltaic Blaze has a higher chance to proc. Some really good stuff there, okay? Now, Blizzard is also changing the way that, like, basically that everything, all your Maelstrom weapon stack procs actually work. So right now in the game, if you generate 5 Maelstrom weapon stacks, everything on your bar lights up, okay? Blizzard is basically getting rid of the lighting up part of that. I'm going to show you this right here. So for example, if I do this and then I spread this around, if I press, you can see all the abilities that are lit up right now. I have Lava Lash, Chain Lightning, Lightning Bolt, my Storm Strike was lit up, and my healing is lit up as well. So they're getting rid of all these abilities lighting up now when you have enough Maelstrom weapon stacks to do it. They're getting rid of that, and instead they're moving to an overlay system and a personal resource system. So this is the personal resource display here, right here, okay? You can see it shows Stormweaver, and it will show Maelstrom weapon stacks right now. If I put it on there, you can see Crash Lightning, it shows as well. There's my Maelstrom weapon stacks, and there's Crash Lightning. It's only going to show up on the personal resource display, and you can see my Lava Lash right now has a little 8 next to it. That 8 is representing the molten or the Ashen Catalyst damage. So it's buffing the damage of my next Lava Lash. It's showing as a little 8 right there. All of my other Maelstrom weapon stack spending abilities are also going to have a little number in them now rather than glowing. So Blizzard is basically trying to get away from the fact that Enhancement Shaman has 8 abilities all glowing at the same time, and they're going to make these numbers instead. Okay, so you will have little numbers inside the boxes of your abilities to tell you how many Maelstrom weapon stacks are available to be spent on said ability. So you might see 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all the way up to 10, right? So that's the big change that they're doing here. That's basically what this entire paragraph is all about. There are some abilities that will still highlight like they do now. So Tempest is going to highlight when you get to 10 stacks. Primordial Storm, that new ability, is going to highlight when you get to 10 stacks. Your Ice Strike is going to highlight Frost Shock, which is kind of cool. And then that's about it. That's about it. There's a bunch of other quality of life functions here. Legacy of the Frost Switch will actually last for 8 seconds now instead of 5. That's also a really big boost to the damage from Legacy of the Frost Switch. And of course, it's a 1. The first talent point gives you 15%, as I said before. So this change to all your abilities lighting up is primarily aimed, I would say, at newer players who feel overwhelmed when they're stepping into Enhancement Shaman shoes, being like, what the hell is going on here? There's literally 8 abilities lit up all at the same time. I don't know which one to press. So that's a fair argument, I would say, for newer players. For older players, I don't think it's really going to change your gameplay that much, because you're still going to have an indicator on your little bars here. You're still going to have an indicator that your abilities are ready to use. And if you're using some kind of an add-on that completely changes all of your stuff anyway, like Plater or something like that, then this is completely irrelevant. If you're using LVUI, I think, will completely function the way that it functions now. I don't think that's really going to change that much at all. So function-wise, I think it's basically the same. It'll just be easier for newer players, okay? That is all the major changes that are coming for Enhancement Shaman. Totemic is getting some nerfs, I would say. They're buffing Searing Bolt and Searing Volley. Oversurge, which is during Ascendance, your totem does more damage. That's getting giga nerfed down to 50% instead of 150%. So it lost 66% of its value. Okay, that's a lot. Sundering from Lava Lash reactivity procs now trigger Earth Surge at 50% effectiveness. So I don't know what they're doing right now. It's this thing here, right? Lava Lash shatters your causing sundering at 30%. So it's actually buffed. So your Lava Lashes that trigger a little mini sundering, those are up to 50% instead of 30, which is nice. But then you can see here, Earth Surge that causes a tremor is 100% instead of 200. So they cut that in half. That's this talent right here, Earth Surge. So instead of it doing 200% damage, it does 100%. So again, that's a pretty big nerf right there. Some big changes to Totemic for sure, and then some changes to Stormbringer. But primarily, basically, I would say they're shifting a lot of your power. Not a lot of your power, but they're shifting some of your power away from your spenders and into your regular melee abilities, which I think is a good change. I think that's actually very, very good. Again, 100% more damage on these. They're shifting some talents around, of course. Better functionality for Molten Assault. You're going to get 6 Flame Shocks out now instead of 5, which is really, really cool. Easy spreading. Voltaic Blaze will proc more often. Sundering procs its own Sundering. Feral Spirits will buff your physical damage now all the time. There's an entirely new Primordial Wave line that ends with Primordial Storm, which is a really fun new ability. And Deeply Rooted has a better chance to proc, in my opinion, than it does right now, which is very, very nice. Okay, those are all the major changes coming for Enhancement Shaman in Season 2. Once the PTR actually becomes available, I will be able to show you guys this on the target dummies, and we'll have some fun with some videos doing that. But for now, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. What do you think about the changes that are coming for Enhancement Shaman? They are pretty extensive. I would call this a mini rework, in my opinion. I would love to hear what you think down there. Thank you guys so much again for watching. Love y'all. I'll see you in the next one.